All right, let's get started. Thanks for being here. Welcome. Remember, we mute. We will do our best to mute you, but you can help out by muting yourself. And I see a few people who aren't muted. So if my helpers can get them muted, or if you can look at your device and check it out yourself, just makes this whole thing go a little smoother. Let's get those slides up on the screen. All right, thank you. You can just scroll to the first one there. All right, let's start with a little holiday cheer here. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. It's a few days away, and I promised to try to do one of these town halls every month, and my intent was not to do this so close to a holiday. But I really didn't have all the information I wanted to share until really late last week. So this seemed like the night to do it in November. But happy Thanksgiving! I am just incredibly thankful for all of the folks that make up the BCSD community during this very, very challenging year. So thank you to our amazing staff. Every single person who has pitched in and made it happen this year. I am hugely appreciative of your efforts. Thanks to our students for making this work this year. Just all your positive energy, your effort, and for doing an outstanding job wearing those masks. Again, I just need to say how blown away I have been with that effort. And then finally, just families. Thank you so much for being so utterly flexible and just working with us this year. So I promised tonight was going to be a little shorter. I've done a lot of these reopening things since this summer, and just because I think we probably have a lot of things to do and a lot on our mind, I am going to try to be brief, which is not always easy for me. But I just have a couple of things I want to hit on tonight. And one is just to talk about kind of the current state. Two is to talk about the state microcluster strategy, they call it, which is, I'm sure you're starting to hear more and more about it. It's the yellow, orange, and red zone. I have tried my best to learn as much about it as possible the last few days. So hopefully I get it right tonight. And if there's something,
do you have the app?
We got some muted.
I can't even.
All right. So the second thing was to talk about this microcluster strategy, how it may impact us here at Beacon. Those are really the two main things. And I'll get into a few other things as we go, but I'm going to try to keep this to a half an hour. So if you do have a question, especially at the end, it's easiest for me to look at the end, but I do have the chat up. Straight up questions, if I can't answer them tonight, I will try to answer them at a later time, but not let it go on for too long without answering. And just if you keep it to questions, that makes it easier for me. All right, next slide. Here we go. Trying to keep this in a half an hour. So the current state. I mentioned in the email that I sent out on Friday, the Beacon City School District will continue to operate in this hybrid in-person and remote model. So we do not foresee any change right now. We want to keep on doing what we've been doing. And, you know, I've said a million times it is not a perfect model, but it is a model that is really focused on safety. And so we want to continue that model. I wanted to send that message out. And I wanted to do this town hall tonight because we are starting to see changes out there. We're starting to see some districts, especially in Orange County, close. not permanently, but close for a few weeks or a month. And you're starting to see some yellow and orange zones pop up. So we want to talk about that a little bit tonight. And again, really been trying the last few days to educate myself as much as possible with this, and so hopefully I get it right tonight. But if not, I will correct it and come back with better info. All right, so we're continuing with our model. Part of our continuing, actually, it's based on a couple of reasons. One is we are really in constant communication with the county health department. That's the Dutchess County Health Department, for sure on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis. I say weekly because we do have an official weekly meeting, superintendents and other key people with many people in the health department. They have been outstanding during this whole time to work with. And so we meet once a week for about an hour. We go through questions. We talk about what's happening. On this last week, it's a Zoom. Mark Molinaro, the county executive, joined us to also answer questions. So with that constant contact, I share that because obviously if they felt we needed to close, we would take that under very, very strong advisement and or just close. So when I'm seeing some other districts saying they're closing in other counties, they're saying that the county health department in that county has advised them to close. That has not been the case so far in Dutchess, and we do talk to them a lot. So we talk to them weekly, but we also talk to them. Something comes up here. Go out another mute. Thank you. Whenever something pops up here, we are on the phone with them right away. And the other reason that we are staying open is because the state already has a procedure in place for monitoring COVID and for closing schools. And this is this micro cluster strategy. So, and like I said, I've been attending some meetings that have been focused on this. It's becoming more of an issue in the region for sure. I've been trying to do as much reading on it as possible, and also doing some preparation for the district as well. So that's what we're going to get into. All right, so next slide, please. All right, here we go. And I'm sorry, these slides are a lot of words and kind of boring looking, but hopefully they have the information you want to learn about with this. So state microcluster strategy. This is based on zip code or census tract or even neighborhood. So this is the part that gets a little tricky because the numbers that I am constantly looking at, obviously I'm looking at our school district numbers, and we report those every single day to the state, but I'm also looking at Dutchess County numbers on a daily basis, both the COVID dashboard that Dutchess puts out, and I also look at the New York COVID alert app, I think it's called. And if you don't have that, it's pretty cool, and so I would recommend that if you're into that sort of thing. It's a good app. So anyway, I look at that constantly. Other staff look at it constantly as well. We are not really monitoring things by neighborhood. I mean, obviously we're monitoring what's happening in the district, but the state folks, the State Department of Health, are the people that monitor on that sort of micro level, and they work with the county on that. So the reason I say that is this is not done across a whole county, or it's not even done across a whole region. And so sometimes when we see numbers for the county going up or a neighboring county going up, we think that the whole county might become a yellow zone or get shut down or what have you, and that is not the case. I'm not saying that that will never happen, because I pretty much feel like there's no definites this year, except they need to be flexible and the need to embrace change. But right now they're really analyzing this on a zip code, census tract, or even a neighborhood. And they're really drilling down to look at that, and that really comes from the state level. So the reason I bring that up is sometimes people will point out to me the Duchess numbers or the region numbers, and I certainly look at those every single day. I pay attention to this as carefully as I can, but that is not the number that will automatically get the Beacon City School District into a yellow zone. And then the other interesting thing about this whole micro strategy thing is it might just impact, it can impact not every school in your district. So there's already been some districts in New York where some of the schools have been in a yellow zone and some of the schools have not. I'm not totally sure how it would play out here. It could be that Glennon would be in a different zone than our 5 other schools, but it may not happen across an entire district. So the definition of this, at least for a yellow zone, but it would be the same for orange and red, is a 3% positivity rate. That's the rolling average. That's the 7-day rolling average. So right now, at least when I looked at the app this afternoon, Dutchess County, the 7-day rolling average just peaked over 3% for the county. But that's the county again, not a neighborhood. So that's the first step in becoming a yellow zone. And then the second part of the data is then that neighborhood zip code or census tract stays over 3% for 10 days. Okay. Once you get into that over 3% for 10 days for your neighborhood or your region, I think the closer you get to 10 days, you start to get a heads up from the health departments to prepare for a potential yellow zone. There have been a number of yellow zones across New York, a lot in upstate New York, in various parts of upstate New York and Western New York. And now you're starting to see some, or there were some in Rockland County several weeks ago. Now you're starting to see some in Orange and in Westchester. And some are changing to yellow, or excuse me, to orange already. But anyway, yellow is the one we're preparing for or trying to prepare for because that's the one that we can work with more easily. So yellow zone for our county, we're a tier 2 county. If you read up on this, would be 3%. Orange is if that whole same 7-day rolling average and then 10 days over the percentage. Orange would be 4%, and red would be 5%. So back to yellow for a second. Schools in a yellow zone can stay open. They can stay open if they test 20% of the folks coming into the building, that's students and staff, within the first 2 weeks. Orange and red have something called, and I see that's a question there, the test out option. And I wrote that in there because I watched, I'll be really honest, I cannot tell a lie. I do not watch a lot of the governor's briefings anymore. That was more of a spring thing. I've kind of moved beyond that, but I did watch Sunday's briefing, and I'm using his language, but I'm not actually certain that orange and red what a test out option means. The only thing I can sort of gather is you have to test the entire population coming in to the building, everybody. So yellow, back to yellow. So schools can open and stay open if you're able to test 20% of the people coming into the school within the first 2 weeks. So we're going to get a little bit deeper into yellow and what a yellow zone would mean and what it would look like if that's happening. I need to say really quickly that I'm not doing this. I'm not sharing this because I've been warned or because we're like a couple of days away from being yellow. That is not the case right now, but things are trending upwards, and we just wanted to prepare and talk about this a little bit. So, and we're trying to prepare ourselves as well. All right, so next slide, let's get into this yellow thing a little bit more. All right, so preparing for this yellow zone designation. Again, this is just a hypothetical preparation right now, but it would make sense for us to do that. If you are paying attention to the whole yellow zone thing, you'll notice in our region, a lot of small city areas have been identified. So, that I don't know what that means for Beacon, but we are a small city as well. So there may be a trend with that. It could just be something due to population density, and it could be more of a numbers thing, honestly, than anything else. But yellow zone. All right. So let's talk about the tests for a second. So the tests are really more seen as more of a surveillance tool, and they're not really meant for individual up close identification. The reason I say that is because the tests that would be required of schools in yellow zones or have been required are not PCR tests. And they are the tests that are easier to administer and give you a rapid result. So what I've been learning is one is just a really quick nasal swab, and then you are able to get the result in about 15 minutes, or a quick saliva swab, and you get a quick result for that as well. So we have a few. The tests should be provided to us for free from the state. From what I understand, they've been stockpiling these things so they can implement this microcluster strategy. I'm going to struggle to say microcluster strategy as this night goes on. It's kind of a tongue twister, but the state is supposed to provide them for free, and we will be working with the Dutchess County Health Department in helping us sort of do this whole thing. And they have assured us that they will work aggressively to help districts that want to do this or have the capacity to do it. They'll help us both secure the test, and they'll help us, if possible, with logistical issues as well. So the test should be free to us. The question is, how do we administer them? So we would need to either hire like an outside agency to help us do the testing, or use existing staff, or maybe some combination of the two. And that's something that we're working on right now. We would need 20%, that first 2 weeks, 20% of the school population that is staff and students. It doesn't have to be 20% of staff, and it doesn't have to be 20% of students. It just needs to be an overall 20%. So we would need to get consent from students and honestly staff to do the test. And so I think our first hurdle with this, if we were trying to stay open, which would be at least, I've always tried to explore all options for staying open in this hybrid model. So we would first see if we could get many people to give us consent to do the test. We'd have to work out some details of how exactly we would do this and where. Obviously, we'd try to do testing at each school site. We'd have to work out whether it's just parent consent or parents need to be there as well. So that's part of developing testing procedures, even down to what time of the day are the tests given, whether we act as our own sort of on-site lab and we get permission to do that from the health department, or we have to, ship the specimens out to get a result. There's a lot that we are currently working on. We started working on this last week to prepare for this. It doesn't mean I don't foresee this happening, but if we became like a yellow zone tomorrow, we would not be ready to start testing tomorrow. I don't want to give that impression, but we have really started to think about and work on some of these logistics. So I think the key takeaways, I try to think about these things as a parent as well, not just a superintendent. So the key takeaways are, it's not a PCR test. It's rapid. It's a little bit less invasive. It's easier to do, easier for the student. We have to test 20%. We wouldn't just test someone without your permission. If you're a parent listening, and from what I understand, we can't make someone test, which is not really what I would want to do anyway. But we would need a pretty large number of people be willing to be tested to stay open. I see a question, is it 20% testing per school or whole district? It depends. If the whole district is a yellow zone, then it would be 20% of the whole district. From my understanding is it wouldn't have to be by school. That being said, I think, to do this surveillance correctly, we would really try to get it as close to 20% from each building. That would be what would make sense. If it's just like a school identified as a yellow zone, then we would just be testing that school. So it's a less invasive test. You get a rapid result. If obviously if a positive result happens, we'd have to start the whole process of obviously contacting families, contacting the health department, starting a quarantine protocol, going for a PCR test, and we can help with that. So it is a large undertaking. It's a large task. What makes me feel a little bit better about it is there's been a number of districts already across the state that have been doing this, and they've actually been doing it successfully so far in a lot of places. So that makes me feel good. We don't know how we'd be staffing the test. I'm just looking over at the chat. Honestly, the planning conversations have just been between just a small group right now. So we're going to start spreading out that conversation. And so, some districts are using outside agencies to do the testing. Some are using their own staff. Some are using a combination. I will promise you this, it won't be me giving the test. We would want someone who has some experience with it. Although from what I understand, the training for the testing is pretty easy. And for school districts that have done it, they've been able to implement that part of it pretty easily. Some are using outside agencies. So the importance of the surveillance tool to test is, so after we've tested all those people over that 1 or 2 week period, we get our own positive rate for us, for our school district. And the key to that is that our rate needs to be under the rate of the microcluster area. So our positive rate would need to be even just a little bit below. That would, again, my understanding is that would enable us to stay open, and we would have to keep testing and stay in the yellow zone. So like I said, it's been happening in New York for several weeks and all kinds of different areas. It's not just one anymore. And places have been doing it successfully. So we're trying to learn from some of those districts. I've been sitting in a lot of regional superintendent meetings trying to learn from districts that have done it already in our region. They are doing different routes, and Westchester's obviously a huge county. Dutchess is a lot smaller, and I think the smallness of Dutchess helps us because we have a really responsive health department who I think is really working hard to help us with this, and they'll really help us with the state part too. So, I would foresee like a cafeteria space or a gym space being where people get tested, some area of the building, that isn't being used as much right now. But yeah, so anyway, that is what a yellow zone would look like. Again, I'm not speaking about this like an expert. I've been really trying to learn a lot about this the past 4 or 5 days. The last thing in that slide, and I'm realizing I might go past the 30-minute mark tonight, but I'm still going to try to be faster than I normally am. Preparing the community. So tonight is an effort to prepare the community. We're recording tonight, and I'll put it up on the website as soon as the one reason it takes a little bit longer is we do scrub phone numbers off. And then we put it up on the website. So we'll make sure people can watch this who weren't able to come tonight. And also just preparing the community that there's got to be some buy-in with this. And if most people do not want to get tested, honestly, it kind of stops right there. But if a majority of folks really want to get tested who are in person, we wouldn't be testing remote learners. It would just be kids who come in for the hybrid model. Then we would give this a try. My hope is that the stockpile that the state has is rather large. I think there's worries that some other regions that are going a little faster than us might use them all up. So we will see. But the testing is supposed to be provided, at least the actual testing kit is supposed to be provided to us for free. We just have to work on the logistical side, and we are starting to do that. Emphasis on starting. The conversations are just kind of at me and Anne Marie right now. And we have talked with Hannah Akchar, who's our head nurse as well, but we haven't started pushing that conversation out. But we are working on it. All right, next slide. So in my letter on Friday, I also just wanted to kind of, I think parents have just, and families have been amazing this year, and our staff, like we're just sort of ready for anything. And every day I'm just impressed with how nimble we've been. And so this is almost just more of a reminder that just to be prepared for closures and going all remote down the road. It could be due to the number of staff and students who need to quarantine for any given thing. It could be because we've been advised by the county health department to close. It could be that we're preparing for yellow, and even though from what I understand for yellow, you can stay open for 2 weeks and you have that 2-week window to get all that testing done. If we feel like it makes sense for us to close for part of that to help us get ready, we may need to do that. I've seen districts kind of do it different ways. And then if we're designated orange or red, just to talk about orange or red for a second, you do have to close for 4 days. That's an automatic closure. And then you can only reopen if you have a plan in place to test, from my understanding, again, everyone who comes in. So that is a challenge. I think you're going to see a lot of orange and red zones just going all remote because I think testing everyone would be a pretty huge logistical challenge. But who knows? Maybe we get really good at this. Maybe it doesn't make sense for us to do it. I am trying to prepare for every contingency, kind of like I tried to back in the summer. Again, not doing any of this perfectly, but just trying to put our best foot out there. But we are also preparing for yellow, because that is the one that I think a lot of districts feel like they can work with. Okay, so this is just, I also say this just because I know, so I get it. I like to I like to remind people that I'm a human being as well, and I look at this not just through the lens of a superintendent, but a dad and just a regular person. And I understand that anxiety increases every day with this. So just know that we are monitoring things every single day. I take all of this very, very seriously. When I feel like we need to close based on all that stuff that I just shared, we will do that. But if I also feel like we can stay open safely, I will do everything to prepare for that as well. But trust me, I get all the feelings that people are having, because I probably have all of them or many of them myself. All right, let's hit the next slide. This is just a slightly different topic for a second. This is just making changes for a student. So way back in the summer, I told folks that if you were started the year hybrid and you needed to move remote for different reasons, we would accommodate that. And we have been. I won't lie, it's been a little bit of a challenge in some circumstances. But we have really tried to honor that. And I also said in January, we would allow people who are remote to switch back to hybrid. So what I'll be doing, if I can get this out tomorrow or Wednesday, I might just wait for Monday after the holiday. We're just going to put a quick little survey out for people who are remote and to see if they want to switch back to hybrid in person, not back, but switch to hybrid in person. And then we might not make everybody wait till January if some people want to do it a little bit sooner, especially at the secondary level. We might be able to accommodate folks a little bit sooner on that. The numbers thing has been an absolute puzzle and trick all year, and it has been a struggle at times, but we do want to give people the option to change. And I also get that someone might sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. if, just with like the holidays happening, the survey doesn't mean if you fill out, yes, I'd like to come back for hybrid in person, doesn't mean you have to come back the next day. It can also mean that you want to come back later in January too. Okay, so we'll try to make that clear in that survey that there is that chance to change. And if we can accommodate an earlier change, again, especially at the secondary level, Brian Soltis really wanted me to put this out there, especially at Roundabout, if we can accommodate that change for people who want to go hybrid much earlier than January. All right, next slide. This is not COVID related. This is just real quick on snow weather days. It's funny, this year's been so complicated and just kind of crazy in many ways that I haven't even really been thinking about weather at all. And usually that's like the big thing that I'm thinking about this time of year. So we needed to develop a weather plan. So you've kind of heard a few schools of thought, and so we're kind of mixing those schools of thought. So you probably have seen a few viral superintendent letters that say, we are staying with having snow days. We want kids to enjoy childhood and snow and playing in the snow and all that. I am on board with that. We are still going to have snow days where school is closed and there will be no remote learning. However, this year, because of all the scheduling issues we are not going to have 2-hour delays. And those of you who've been with me for a while know how I love those 2-hour delays. I call them a lot. So we're not going to have those 2-hour delays this year. So this won't be perfect, but on a lot of those 2-hour delay days, I'm probably going to do a school closed, but we're going to have remote learning. Reason for that is I don't want to close school a lot of days this year and have to go into things like spring break. This has already been a challenging year. I do not want to take spring break away from people. Okay, so I'm just going to be blunt. I also do want the learning to continue where it makes sense, but I also want everyone to enjoy a good old-fashioned snow day too. So we're kind of doing a mix. If I can communicate this ahead of time, like as in the night before, if it makes sense to do that. I know I don't normally do that in past years. I will try to do it the night before so folks can prepare. But sometimes it might be announced, at that 5 a.m., 5:15 time. So I have managed to make snow day calls even slightly trickier and more confusing, but we're going to do our best, and we're going to remind people a bunch of times about this. And then who knows, maybe we'll hardly have any inclement weather this year and we'll just be totally fine. So who knows, but we will keep communicating about snow days. Trust me, I hate calling them as much as you hate hearing them. So it's just one of those things, but we are going to try to get through it without messing with our calendar too much, keep the learning going, but also have people enjoy that good old traditional snow day. We also have to be realists and know if it's just a good old beautiful snow, if we try to do remote learning on that day, no one might show up. So we don't want that to happen either. So because everyone will be out digging out or playing in the snow. All right, so I just want to take a moment to talk about that. So I came close. It's about 35 minutes. Just to recap a little bit. Be prepared. If you're a numbers looker, there's places to look. The Dutchess County dashboard's a good one. I look at that one, and I also look at the New York COVID Alert app, which I think is like kind of a state thing, and it gives you good data. And I've been known to try to refresh that sucker, to see if it's been updated a few times. So be prepared. Cases are rising. We are preparing for the potential. This is purely hypothetical right now, but the potential possibility of us becoming a yellow zone cluster, which would mean we would start or try to start a testing program. Again, it's the least invasive kind of test. And we would need to be testing 20% of our students and staff. We would need our positive rate to be below the microcluster rate. So that is probably my big main point, that we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to keep you guys prepared. I also just want to say again, to reiterate, I totally get all of the anxiety that folks feel. I have it too. And we're just going to keep trying to do this all together as a team. So anyway, that's what we have been working on. So I'm just going to look at questions really quickly. I try to alert everyone to every positive case we've had. I think at the very, very way back in the beginning of the year, we may have had one of an all remote student that had never been in a building. This was way at the beginning of the year that I did not do like a robocall on. But we do an announcement and then follow up with individuals for contact tracing. Have the families been contacted that were impacted with the Glenham cases? I think the number of contacts was on the smaller side for that. So I think the effort has been made. It was made this afternoon and into this evening. So I want to say that we have done that. But sometimes we have to leave messages and stuff. So I'm not totally sure if we've gotten to a live person on each one. But I'm just getting a text here that yes, we have. How can we have not been closing for some of the more recent positive cases? That's a good question. So the last few positive cases that we've had, the person hadn't actually been in the building for several days. And so we did not have to do a shutdown for that because the building had already been cleaned several times between the last time the person had been in, just with our general cleaning program. And the contact tracing went very smoothly and quickly. I will close if the person has been in the building more recently, or the contact tracing gets pretty complicated, or the cleaning needs to be very, very involved because of the exposure being pretty large. But I said in one of my emails to you all that that every one of these is sort of uniquely different, which we have been experiencing. So we try to kind of roll with each one and make a plan for safety and whatnot as best we possibly can. So, all right. All right. So also just want to say thanks to the folks who have made given us some nice feedback, and and so I just want to say thank you for that feedback, and I will keep that and share it with folks, because I see a nice shout out to our cafeteria staff on there. So I just want to echo that. But really, I just can't say enough. Everyone really has been amazing this year. It's been a total team effort. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone, staff, students, and families. So, all right. I told you this one was going to be shorter, so 40 minutes. So we're going to keep in touch. Hopefully I don't have to do too many communications over the Thanksgiving holiday, and I can just leave you alone. Have a very safe holiday, and good luck with all the hard choices that we all have to make for holidays this current holiday season. So good luck with that. Stay safe. We will see you on the flip side of this, and we will be in touch, as you know, about anything that comes up, and just be prepared. So thank you a lot, and have a great night.